Welcome back to Startup Hack. With my 25 years of development experience, here at Startup Hack, we turn beginners into full-stack developers in as little as 3 months. Today, we're going to be digging into Dapper as a lightweight object relational mapper in .NET. It's popular because it's easy to use and fast at the same time. Dapper extends the IDB connection interface with methods for sending SQL queries to the database. But because of the nature of SQL, mapping the result of an object to a model can be tricky. So I'm going to explain to you how to do that. So let's dive in today. All right, so today we're diving into Dapper, a great lightweight object relational mapper in .NET. I'm going to teach you how to use mappings to use in Dapper. We're going to work with the following. We're going to work with a simple query, one-to-one relationships, one-to-many relationships, and many-to-many relationships. So let's dive in. Now, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because we try to bring you some great content. Also, we always make sure to post the code samples, so check the links down below and make sure to pull down the code so you don't have to write all this yourself. All right, so Dapper is great because as you can see right here in the code, we actually have the direct SQL query, and it's really easy to work with. And so, for instance, in this kind of a case where we have an easy one-to-one mapping, we have a very simple mapping. So we create a class called a line item class, and we have the item ID, order ID, price, currency, quantity. And we take that and we can write a query, a simple query like this, a one-to-one or just a one-to-one relationship query. It's very easy to configure. We set it up, we do the dictionary, and we then add the query async right here, and it becomes really easy for us to be able to query this object, and we can query it using this. Sorry, we had the wrong code in place there. So now I've got the right code here. We can see it's very easy to use query async, and we just give it the line item class here, and Dapper automatically does the mapping here for us. Now, we pass in this new parameter here called the order ID parameter, and you can see that it will map to this order ID parameter in the query itself. This is a great way to be able to protect against SQL injection. It's also a really great way to be able to have your SQL query right inside of your code so you can manage it using Git and other code repository tools to make it easy rather than trying to manage it in a database. So this is a very simple one-to-one mapping. So now let's jump into, this is just a very simple query mapping. So now let's dive into a one-to-one relationship mapping. So now in a very simple one relationship mapping, and I'm going to swap out this code here. So I'm going to pause it really quick while I swap out the code. So you can see here I'm going to change out this to instead a slightly more complex, but still not terrible, list of line items that we are going to build on top of. And so now you can see that our query's gotten a little bit more complicated, right? We've got a join in here where we're joining on products. So I have my product class with a product ID and a name, right? And so this is going to make this much simpler to map with. We do this join on it, and we can see that we do the query async still, and this time now instead we're going to give it the line item, the product, and then another line item. This will then do that mapping, and we'll create the product from it. And so you can see that we're even going to tell it to split on the product ID. So you can tell that the split on is a great keyword to be able to work with on Dapper here, and we split on that item, and this will then do that mapping for us so that we don't have to do that mapping, and Dapper is really quick at this. All right, so now we're going to dive into a one-to-many relationship. So in a one-to-many relationship, you can see that our query here changes up a little bit more now, and so now we've got multiple different joins, right? So we've got join on this, and a double join, and then also the where clause here. So this will then be turned into a one-to-many mapping, and in order to replace that, so now you can see that we are going to replace that. We're going to create a new dictionary, this orders dictionary, and so now we've created this orders class. We have an order ID. The line items is actually a list of line items, and we then still use the product class, and we're doing this, and we would join then on a list of order IDs. Now, the compiler is getting a little cranky here because I don't have my order ID declared, and so it doesn't really know what to do with his order ID, but we would be able to add this order ID here. Let me get this fixed. So the inline compiler was getting cranky because I didn't have an order ID here, right? So we had to declare the order ID, and you could have just as easily put it down here as well, but that wouldn't be the way that we'd really code this in real life. And so we have the order ID, and so we have the list of order ID. We have an order ID here that we set. We query async, and now we're going to give it the order class, the line item class, and the order class. And then we're going to add this loop where it's checking to say, hey, if I get the order ID and if it exists, then we add it. Otherwise, we don't add it to the dictionary. So we did need to create the dictionary before. But you can see in this way that we're going to be mapping a one-to-many for the one-to-many relationship on the mapping using Dapper. Now, one of the best things that I like about this is that Dapper is really quick at doing this. One of the great things about Dapper is how fast it executes, as well as being able to then maintain all of the SQL code in your query. It's also great because when you're working with this, you can actually work with the SQL query itself in MySQL or in whatever database tool you're using, in the SQL Server Management Studio or whatever tool. And you can actually query this, and then once you find the right query, you can plug it into the code and then just build out your models accordingly. So we can see how powerful this is. And because of how SQL works, mapping into an object model is sometimes complicated, but we've covered today the simple mapping, a one-to-one mapping, and a one-to-many mapping. Now, as with everything, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because I really try hard to bring you great content. Also, make sure that you pull down the latest code samples, and make sure you tell your friends and families that are trying to learn to code that we'd love to help them. We'd love to take that at Startup Pack. We love to take junior developers and help to train them to become senior developers. And so make sure to check out the channel, and we'll talk with you guys next time. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because we bring you lots of great tutorials and tips that every developer should know. See you next time.